We get started in just a moment or two now, 7 o'clock, so we get started. Good evening, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming along to our meeting tonight, all those people in the public part of our Guildhall tonight. There are no fire alarms planned for this evening. Should the alarm sound, please leave via the nearest available emergency exit. 2 of the closest exits are through the glass doors behind you and to my left, over there. And through the double doors onto the riverside behind you as well. That's straight through under the clock where you come in there. When you're outside, please meet outside Café des Amis. Members of the public are welcome to make their own recordings of this meeting using whatever non-disruptive methods they think are suitable. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting is being filmed and made available to view in live and archive form via the Council's website. If you are seated in the public gallery, it is possible that the cameras may capture your image. If you wish to avoid being filmed, it is recommended that you make a member of the staff aware and you can be directed to sit somewhere where that won't happen. The Westgate Gardens gates on the riverside are locked already at sunset, so members of the public must leave the Guildhall by the side exit that's behind the glass doors in the glass porch there. Okay. So just going to read the next bit out, which sort of sets the scene for the way that the meeting will run tonight. I understand that we have 4 members of the public making representations to the Cabinet this evening. Thank you so much for coming to address us. We very much appreciate it. And you're some of the first speakers to take this opportunity, and we very much welcome this opportunity for people after you to come as well. And tonight you're very welcome, of course. I just need to remind the speakers that while the Cabinet will be listening intently, it's very keen to hear your views and the points that you want to make. They would not be discussing any of those tonight. This is especially important when comments are made or questions are raised about issues the Council is recently consulting on, or currently consulting on, or will consult on in the future. It would not be right to prejudice any of that by expressing our opinions tonight. So, I'm now, if we're all ready, we'll just take a breather, and the first public speaker is going to be Julia Kirby-Smith. Okay, so please make yourself comfy. When you're ready, we'll start. No rush. Okay.
Okay.
There we go. Off you go.
Good evening, councillors and officers. I'm here to talk to you about the level of public demand for conserving the Blean ancient woodland. In October, a group of residents from Canterbury and Whitstable set up a petition on change.org. It said, "We, the undersigned, urge the protection and enhancement of the Blean landscape and woodland complex as a vital hub of biodiversity, heritage, agriculture and community well-being for the benefit of future generations. To realise this vision for the Blean, we advocate the following actions: protection and expansion of ancient woodland and wildlife conservation initiatives, investment in biodiversity and nature-based carbon projects, promotion of sustainable agriculture, and formal recognition of the Blean Landscape Project's boundaries to safeguard its ecological and cultural significance." By the end of February this year, that petition had more than 22,500 signatures. And this is what it looks like when you put them all on bits of paper and print them out. We have a copy of the petition and the thousands of signatures to give to you this week. We'd like to draw your attention to your own policy, SS110, which makes a clear commitment. The Council will continue to work with partners to support the extension and improved connectivity of the Blean Woodland Complex. The Blean Woodland Complex is a truly unique area, not just for its wildlife habitats and biodiversity, but also for its heritage. It is here that the first ever passenger train in the world was built. The line and the famous Invicta locomotive, both created by pioneering engineers George and Robert Stephenson. Councillors, if you fail to protect this area of heritage and ancient woodland, you will lose a huge amount of support in Canterbury. But now, an exciting and innovative plan for protecting the southern part of the Blean Woodland is being developed by the University of Kent, Kent Wildlife Trust, and many other partners. And we urge you to consider deeply the public demand that is conveyed by this petition for conserving the Blean ancient woodland and to give the emerging plans serious consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Okay. We'll let Julia settle down now, and because the next speaker is going to be William Rowlinson.
Thank you.
And William, when you're ready.
Thank you, Anna. Good evening, officers and councillors. Hopefully, by now you'll have received a letter from Parish Councillor Anya Bobrovich, committee member of Save the Blean, about the Blean Biopark. In it, she outlined how a Blean Biopark would support the council's key policies on net zero, nutrient neutrality, biodiversity, heritage, open space, and landscape. I myself work at the University of Kent, and I'm also on the committee of Save the Blean. And we have been working with the university to create value out of the unique features mentioned by Julia, the previous speaker. And our approach is about reducing risks for the university by not putting all their eggs in one basket, and to help them use their land holdings in parcels that are deliverable and financially achievable, and also for releasing money faster so that the university can reach financial stability. Importantly, the Blean Biopark plan aligns with the university's emerging research, innovation and teaching strategies, which have a focus on food, agriculture, life sciences and conservation, amongst others. It also aligns with the university's flagship Right to Food initiative to becoming a nature-positive university and to its commitment to civic responsibility and to sustainability. The Blean Biopark also strongly aligns with Kent County Council's growth and innovation strategy on food production and agritech, in which the university is a key partner. In brief, the biopark combines green capital solutions such as biodiversity net gain, nutrient neutrality, and wild carbon, reforestation and biodiversity restoration, nature-friendly farming, celebration of local history and heritage, regenerative tourism, community well-being through access to green space, activities, learning, and such like, collaboration with local partners to maximize impact and to establish financial resilience. Kent Wildlife Trust and other partners recently held a workshop with the University of Kent. About half of executive group were present, and it was a very fruitful meeting. And the ideas and options that came out of the workshop are now going to be presented to the whole of the university's executive group, and then hopefully from there to the University Council. We hope to be able to share the maps, the financial vision, the funding plans, and greater detail with all of you, councillors and officers, soon. It is such a huge opportunity for the district, for the University of Kent, and for you as city councillors and officers to create something fantastic, a great positive legacy for Canterbury City Council to take with it into a new unitary authority. So we'd like to know what we can do to help to get the council to consider seriously this and to support the innovative and inspiring vision for Canterbury. Thank you very much.
Thank you, William. We appreciate that as well. The next speaker is going to be Max Scorer. Okay, and set yourself down. Start when you're ready.
Good evening, councillors and officers. I'm here to talk to you about students' views of the role of the University of Kent in the future of this city. The students of any university are the key to its success. But despite this, most Kent students have been left in the dark about potential plans to build on the Blean. But that doesn't mean that we don't care. When I have spoken to peers about the plans, I'm met with shock. The Green Campus of Kent is an iconic part of its identity. On open days, when we have such little time to take everything in, the thing that sticks with us the most is the campus. If the land around the university is radically changed, we will lose what makes Kent unique, and students will inevitably choose to study elsewhere. The other thing I hear loud and clear from students is disappointment. Young people care about sustainability, and a huge part of Kent's draw is its commitment to green-led decisions. To some students, talk of selling land to a housing developer feels like a betrayal of that promise. The public image of the university will be impacted by this decision, because learners increasingly want to go to a university that they feel is prioritizing the environment and sustainability. On top of this, student mental health is at crisis point, and green spaces are vital to improving student well-being. The Kent Community Oasis Garden exists to support student well-being through access to nature, but it is at risk of being displaced. The countryside around the campus may be at risk of being destroyed. When students are under so much pressure, it makes no sense to take away our lifeline and make the world around us so much more overwhelming. Quiet, disconnected outdoor places are becoming rarer and rarer at a time that we young people need them the most. It's not only students who would be impacted by the destruction of the Blean. I don't know another campus in Britain that has access to such a plethora of rare species. We have a unique opportunity to support the research on wildlife that few have access to, not to mention a duty to protect the habitats of the most vulnerable creatures in our ecosystem. If we embrace the unique landscape of the Blean and the role it plays in research at Kent, the university could become a hub for conservation research that would boost its income and protect the ecosystem. I implore you to listen to the young people that make up such a large population of our wonderful city and support the Biopark plan. It will help nurture the university into being a place that everyone wants to attend, so it can attract strong student numbers for years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Max. That's really appreciated as well. Thank you. I'm sure this is not our last speaker, but this time it's Les Brown, please. Make yourself comfortable, and when you're ready, then please start.
Right.
Thank you
This
very
is
much.
more of a personal matter from my perspective, but on the 12th of December 2023, I contacted planning department with regard to a situation where rainwater was being diverted onto my property from the neighbouring property. I then had to chase many times to get a response, and I was eventually spoken to by someone in neighbourhood management in February who didn't know anything about my initial complaint. We spoke to each other, and eventually in May, this person agreed to write to the tenant and rectify the problem, as it was a council property. I then had a situation that after that, I had 3 months where I tried to respond, left messages, and was told eventually that this person had actually left the organisation, and I'd obviously been leaving messages, telephone messages, reception, and on her voicemail to no avail. In August, after I then made a further complaint, in August I was contacted by someone else who once again had no idea what I was complaining about, had didn't seem to have any records at all. I had 2 telephone conversations with this person who agreed to chase up the clerk of works, who apparently had already been out without speaking to me. Then after 2 voicemail messages, further attempts via email, telephone, reception and voicemail again, I got no response at all, just totally ignored. So I complained again. In November, I was given the name of an individual by complaints department who would contact me within 10 days to resolve the issue. I received no response from this individual, and every 10 days I made further complaints for 70 days. In January 2025, I received a letter stating, which did not address any of the issues I raised, but that the conservatory was erected under permitted development, and the tenant had received written permission from Canterbury City Council to do this. I then escalated my complaint to a stage 2 complaint, even though I'd already made 4 complaints already. And on the 5th of February, I was actually informed by the complaints department that someone would respond to me within 20 days, as per your the complaints procedures. After 22 days, I complained again because I'd heard nothing, no response, no communication, no holding emails. That was on the 7th of March this year. On the 21st of March this year, 32 days since stage 2 complaint, I complained again, and then that was last Friday, and at that point I received a holding email asking for another 7 days. I just want you to know basically that the complaints procedure is not working as far as I'm concerned. There's no accountability, no information sharing between departments and individuals or citizens. You call me a citizen. Nobody appears to want to resolve any of the issues. They just want to get rid of it from their desk. And basically, from my point of view, I've been ignored constantly. I've had failed promises over the last 18 months, 2 years, 1 year. Missed deadlines. I've been misled totally, not listened to. And I've got to the stage now where I don't believe anything that any of the staff at CCC tell me. And the question that I'm still waiting for now, I've got 7 days to wait for, is have you really given a tenant written permission to erect a conservatory and not stipulated which builders they have to use? And the same goes for the roof space. They've actually had a bedroom in their loft converted, and they've erected a log cabin in the garden, which they were, or the son was, going to use for Airbnb purposes until I objected to that.
I must wind up a little bit. We've run over quite considerably.
That's it.
But we're going to take a short break after that. Thank you again for taking the time to address us. Please don't leave, any of you, just for a second or two, and we'll deal with that issue to follow, and then we'll start the rest of our meeting. So just take a break for just a couple of minutes, please. Thank you, everyone. That's been amazing. So, really great to have speakers. I think it's the first time, isn't it? We've had that number of speakers, isn't it? It's absolutely amazing. So, I'm delighted that's happened, and may there be many more evenings when we actually have members of the public talking to us in a similar way, and that's amazing to do that. So, thanks to that, and so pass the word out there, please, all of you. It's been good. So. Okay, let's move on. So, get the right bit of paper in front of me now. So that's the shiny white paper on the keyboard stuff. That's right. So, yes, that's great. So we're now at the meeting, the proper part of the meeting, the agenda part of the meeting, should we say? That's really. So this is a meeting of the Cabinet. The Cabinet is part of the Council's, it's part of the Council that's responsible for most day-to-day decisions. It's chaired by the leader, who is elected by the Council, and that's me, Alan Baldock. The other Cabinet members are as follows. So we've got Councillor Sol, who's Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Finance. Councillor Dixie, who's Cabinet Member for Property and Performance. Councillor Hazelton, Cabinet Member for Housing. Councillor Dawkins, Cabinet Member for Environment and Climate Change. Councillor Charlotte Cornell, Cabinet Member for Council Services, Culture and Heritage. Councillor Chris Cornell, Cabinet Member for Economic Development and Inclusion and the Coastal Towns Champion. Councillor Ricketts, Cabinet Member for Tourism, Transport and is the Rural Champion. And Councillor Nolan, who's Community Engagement, Safety and Enforcement. The Cabinet collectively provides strategic leadership to the Council. So the first thing we're going to just check out is, have you got any apologies for absence?
There's no apologies this evening, Chair.
Thank you, Lauren. The second bit is declarations of interest by members or officers. Any been entered already?
We've got none in advance, Chair.
Any of you want to raise okay. Marie Raw?
I'm a director of Kinenco.
Okay, that's great. So we got those all logged, yeah? That's fantastic. Okay. So this is a chance now for Cabinet members to update us with announcements if they wish to. So I know Pip was first up, then Connie, and then Alex. So over to you, please, followed by the alarm, please. And then Mel. Okay, that's good.
Thank you, Alan. I wanted to get my hand up first because I've got some really good news, which I think has been in the public domain for a couple of days, but I wanted to be able to officially announce it, in the Guildhall tonight, that we've been awarded a massive grant, a Warm Homes grant for Social Housing Fund, £6.6 million. It's the largest award in Kent. We're adding to that with over £11 million from our own housing revenue account, which will basically retrofit 1,500 homes over the next 3 years, basically by insulating homes, high performance windows and doors, and replacing or upgrading heating systems. Because basically we've had the political will to get officers to work on this, to prioritise this. We've, over the last couple of years, employed surveyors to be able to assess the condition of the stock. And actually the previous administration, that hadn't been prioritised, so we were unable as an authority to apply for the Warm Homes Grant Waves 1 and 2, but because we now have that data, we've been able to do it. And I pay tribute to the officers and particularly the hard work of one of the officers, Colette Wells, in getting that through. And because we know that devolution is on the horizon as well, we're determined to pass on warmer, healthier homes that will save our residents money on their heating bills and at the same time, facing our climate change, commitments and those demands. And then just a final, it would normally make a big splash of news of its own, but it feels like a little bit of an afterthought. We have also been awarded £1.5 million from a Warm Homes grant, which is so that poorer households in privately owned or privately rented accommodation can make applications to upgrade, poorly insulated homes that are EPC D or below to bring them up to standard. And that in its own, on its own is, is something that we really welcome. But, it's an £18 million package for our social homes plus another 1.5 million grant pot. So good news, good news. I'm really pleased to be able to announce it. Thank you.
It's been amazing, hasn't it? It was a bit to keep quiet about it, didn't we? And that was even harder, wasn't it? But so, thank you, Pip, for summarising that. And it's absolutely fantastic news. And I know Mel's much smiling over there, aren't you, as well? So that's really good. Okay. And Connie next. Well, I think it was Connie next, wasn't it? Yeah. And Mel, yeah.
Thank you. Just two things. First of all, we are winning the war on the cyclists cycling down the high street during 10 and 4 o'clock. Winning the war with the delivery riders. I've witnessed several of them actually wheeling their bikes, and I've given them the thumbs up, and they've looked at me as if to say, who the heck is she? But there you go. Thank you for doing that. We've still got a lot to go because now we've got members of the public whizzing their way through. If I feel that I've got my lanyard of power on me, I do actually gently stop them and say, I'd hate for you to get a fine. Did you know? And they say no and get off. Sometimes they gesticulate. I think they're saying sort of peace be with you, round the wrong way or something. But it's heartening that the message has got through. And I have to pay tribute to Matthew Scott, the Police and Crime Commissioner, because I've been on his case to back us up. And he had a meeting with the delivery companies. And I think because it came from him, it sort of had more authority. But, we were asking him to do that. So that's good news. That's good news. And I've got absolutely terrific news. I'm fairly bursting with pride here. For 2 years of lobbying Kent Cricket, we've actually got Kent Cricket sponsoring kids cricket as a pilot, which is going really well. And their own words is historic because they were quite concerned that we wouldn't get a good take-up. 31 children. 31 children. And they would have run it with 8, they said. They've now got a problem. They haven't got enough coaches. But, that's something we can get round. And I'm talking with them again about running disability cricket and also rolling it out in other deprived areas of the district. So I'm absolutely bursting with pride over that one. Thank you.
Again, fantastic bit of news. 2 bits of good news there. And good that the Kent Cricket Club have been with us, haven't they, for the last couple of years. Once we started to take an interest, I think they've been working with us really well, and I'm absolutely chuffed to bits about that. So, and it's from strength to strength. Well done, Connie. It's fine. Alex.
Thanks, Alan. Difficult to follow those two. I was really proud of this one, but now I'm following it as is becoming traditional. I'm going to talk about parking. We had the annual parking review at the Joint Transportation Board last week, which is a set piece that happens every year. It's one of the biggest dates in the calendar for those people who enjoy parking. And I have to report that it was finished in a record 1 hour and 19 minutes. This is a meeting that has in the past gone on till midnight and even had to have had a second date. And it's where we review all of the double yellow lines and various other parking conditions across the district. We have been praised in Canterbury for the fact that we do it annually. They're often dealt with piecemeal in other districts, and they can drag on and run, and it makes consultation difficult because you have to consult each one. And that's actually the serious point in here is huge thanks to the officers, particularly Richard Jenkins, for delivering that shorter meeting, but also delivering a very smooth process. the consultation, in some cases, there were lots of returns on each one. In some cases, there were one or two, but they were very well considered. And by the time it came to the board to consider, the officer had put forward a recommendation, sometimes to change on the basis of consultation responses, sometimes to go ahead, sometimes to stop. And it was incredibly smooth. I think we had 3 or 4 speakers on a couple of items. I think Councillor Dawkins, as Ms Dawkins on the night, was one of them. and it was, it was one of those moments where it just felt like everything worked very, very well. The consultation was listened to, it was responded. The officers put a fantastic bit of work in front of us, and we all got out in a reasonable time. So I just thought it was worthy of mention.
Gosh, I've suffered over those meetings in many a year gone past, so that's wonderful news. But it's really important to loads of areas and families and what have you. So it's important to get it right. And it was a good meeting that feels like people have had some justice, I think, and that's absolutely right. Mel.
Miss Dawson's. Yeah. No, I do enjoy those JTB meetings, actually. I'm going to be sad that I won't be on them. They're one of my favourite. I don't know, they just appeal to me. And it's democracy happening right there. But yeah, I think I've got 4 or 5 announcements, unless Councillor Cornell wants to take one of them, which you probably know which it's about. He's over there. But one of them is about the Solar Together scheme. I think it's round 3. So a lot of these have been all out in the press and everything, but it's great to be able to announce them here. So these are, that's a group buying scheme. It's going to be reopened on the 31st of March, and it offers residents a cut price. It's sort of like they buy in bulk, if you like, and then they get their solar panels cheaper, sort of thing. And this time around, they're doing retrofitting battery storage as well as part of the scheme, which is a great way to make even more savings on your energy. And people can register on the Solar Together website. I just want to also say, really, really completely over the moon about the grants that Councillor Hazelton has mentioned already. Obviously, that's going to help a lot of people. So many people losing so much heat because of poor insulation or old boilers or old equipment or whatever. So this is going to be amazing, and for the climate, help reduce our carbon emissions as well. So that's going to be great. Herne Bay Memorial Pond has had a bit of work done to it. 30 tonnes of sludge removed. I know a few of the residents are saying that they haven't really noticed any difference, but the sludge has been removed, and if there's more money, the teams will be doing more in the future. I think some vegetation has been maintained on the island there, and there also is now a sort of viewing platform, a little mini pier, I call it, which is going down well. I think people are already there playing on their remote control boats or whatever. There is now a tree officer in place. Hooray! Life is sweet. So appointed finally, and that, I'm sure I can say who it is. It's Martin Thomas, and he came over from the Kent and Stour Countryside Partnership. So he's very well connected with the area and what's going on, and I know him as well, and he's great. Just want to mention that the Broad Oak Reservoir Stakeholder Advisory Group has been meeting a few times, and it's a closed group, but all parish councillors, organisations, community groups, nature groups, campaigners and residents associations are all invited, and they're sort of working together with South East Water to sort of communicate about how this reservoir is going to be in the future. So they want that sort of community engagement now to help them plan how that's going to look. So I've been going along to that, and it's been good. Do you want to mention about the fishermen's huts? I'll let you do that one then. Okay, so those are my announcements. Thank you.
Thanks, Mel. Some good stuff there as well. We'll bring into good stuff for our residents actually every single time, isn't it? We're hitting the right note there. Chris, you can pick that one up.
Yeah, I'm afraid I didn't get to announce as many millions of pounds as Pip does, but our kind of the two kind of announcements for me are we installed a range of solar panels, I think 31, on the fishermen's huts in Whitstable Harbour about 3 weeks ago, thanks to a grant from New Connect. a contribution from the council and from the local fishing community. I went down on Friday and they've all got their little phone apps telling them how much energy is powering into the batteries, but it's a very pragmatic way of reducing their bills, making their livelihoods more sustainable and helping the environment. Secondly, we have just signed a funding agreement with Social Enterprise Kent to deliver a community lottery in the local district. So this is a grant which will allow the organisation to work with Gatherwell, who are a third party, to deliver a community lottery in the district. We won't be running it directly ourselves, but what it allows local charities to effectively do is to have a sustainable funding stream, which through this gift we can enable. So local community groups or sports groups can enter the scheme free of charge, highlight it amongst their members, and for every £1 which effectively they play into the community lottery, 50p of it goes back to the organisation that they've developed, as well as they get an opportunity to win out on the lottery kind of every month as well. So it's a really sustainable way of kind of helping the charity sector help themselves, and it's a grant which will also encourage Social Enterprise Kent to work in the local district. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Chris. Have you missed something? Yeah, okay, Mel, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, it was just, I think on behalf of all of us here, thanks to the public speakers for coming tonight and speaking, and appreciate it, and I hope we get more of them, and I did listen.
Yeah, they were powerful speakers. We really appreciated that as well. It was so good to do. Okay, nothing else then. We'll keep jogging through the agenda. So we've got a public speaker, but it's a little bit further up the agenda on item 7. That's Guy Mayhew. So we take this item 4. And item 5 is references to committees. That there are none that I've got noted. So that's great. So we now need to hopefully approve and note the minutes of our meeting that we held on the 10th of February. Are we all happy to do that? Thank you. That's been approved by general assent. Now we're on to the bit agenda part A, which is what items to be considered with public participation, and I'm absolutely delighted that we've got Guy Mayhew here to speak on this item. So if you come forward, Guy, that would be amazing. Thank you. We'll listen to what Guy's got to say, and then we sort of, Councillor Charlotte Cornell will introduce that item to follow Guy speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I can't obviously come off the back of the last public speakers, but it's a bit more mundane. But tonight you're being asked to approve yet another service delivery plan for Kinenco. But in reality, you're endorsing a system that has operated without robust legal or financial accountability for over 4 years. Let's be absolutely clear. Kinenco still has no formal contract, meaning no enforceable service specification, no binding performance regime, and no structured financial accountability. The performance monitoring framework is a fiction. The KPIs in the Cabinet papers do not match those in the draft performance mechanism or what is reported publicly. Where they do exist, they are failing. Dog fouling reports, for example, take months on average to be actioned. FOI disclosures reveal procurement failures. Kinenco has spent millions of pounds of public money through direct awards with no competition, breaching public contracts regulations. The council is charged over £100,000 in addition per year for summer resources, yet with no enforceable contract, there is no way to measure value for money. Even the company's advisory committee that met a fortnight ago questioned whether grass cutting was being reduced next year to meet budgetary constraints. But with no specification, no one really knows. And these failures have had real-world consequences. Last summer, bins overflowed for weeks as Kinenco flexed its resources away from Canterbury to the coast. The World Heritage Site, one of Canterbury's most valuable assets, was left neglected, with volunteers forced to step in and clear the mess. This was not an accident. This was a predictable outcome of a system with no contract, no enforceable standards, and no protections against the arbitrary allocation or reallocation of resources at the expense of our historic city. Cabinet, you are the commissioner of this service. Tonight you are being asked to approve a service delivery plan for a company that has no contract or enforceable service standards, has a procurement record that, by its own admission, doesn't comply with regulations, and is free to flex resources at will, even if it damages Canterbury's reputation and livability. You have two choices. One, insist on governance, procurement and performance standards being formalised before approving yet another service delivery plan. Or two, ignore the evidence, sign off on continued failures and wait for external auditors or regulators to intervene. If you approve this plan without addressing these shortcomings, you are knowingly endorsing a service provider that lacks legal compliance, transparency and enforceable service expectations. If this council is serious about accountability and value for money, the answer should be obvious. The public and potentially regulators are watching. Thank you.
Thank you, Guy. Your views are noted by us all, certainly. Okay, let Chris and Charlotte get back to their seats, and then we're when you're ready, Charlotte, just introduce the item, please. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Pleased to introduce the Can & Co Service Delivery Plan 2025-2026. This has been through the Companies Committee, and I've seen the draft minutes of that, but I don't believe the final minutes are yet available. And I will refer to some of the draft minutes and some of the comments made by that committee. I hope that they will accept that they are not the final comments, but I really do feel Cabinet should hear some of the points that were made there. So, crews are averaging 2 missed collections a day. This is a very comprehensive report, actually. I should start out, and I hope people have had the chance to at least read and digest some of the highlights therein. But we, on the coalface of ward councillorship, hear regularly when collections are missed. But in rounds, which can be up to 1,200 properties, the average are 2 missed collections. And while, of course, we're very sorry that they do happen, mistakes are made. I hope that ward councillors and indeed Cabinet feel that the communication from the in-house team, the officers since the autumn, where you are told directly what the reason for multiple missed collections are when it's a road or a closure or a diversion or a build, has been useful. And certainly from my point of view, that communication has really helped me streamline complaints. And I feel that the relationship that I've built with ward councillors over these issues has been a lot stronger. So that's thank you very much to Sarah and to Carol and to the comms team for putting that in the middle of the year. It's made a massive difference. The crews also report around averaging 1,000 properties a day across the district where containers are not presented for collection at all by the required time. We do get quite a lot of reports made where we have camera evidence that the bins weren't presented at the time the crews turned up, and 1,000 properties a day is significant. We will continue in 2025-26 to refresh communications, to remind people, because regular reminders, no one gets annoyed by regular reminders. I think they are a benefit. Time they are presented, weekdays they are presented. Assisted collections continue to increase, and this is the increased demand in assisted collections is mirrored Kent-wide. We have an increasingly elderly and vulnerable population, and the demand for that service grows and grows. We regularly look to how we can improve the service and will continue to do so. It's top of my to-do and to improve agenda personally for 2025-26, because when assisted collections don't work, or the rounds aren't updated quickly enough, it can very quickly impact quality of life for people who really, really rely on our service to be regular. In 2025, we're pleased to be evolving the communal food collection service, and I know you are all aware that that's forthcoming. It follows the 2023 trials and the learning that was taken therein. We're already working with housing partners and developers to request a common keypad entry system, because one of the key barriers to successful collections is that different communal properties have very different ways of entering the area in which you might collect the bin. Many, many different codes, many different locks, the age of many different locks. For this to be a successful service, it needs to be universal, so that crews and staffing, regardless of changes, don't need to pick up a logbook full of 100 different ways and means. This has to be synchronized so it can be efficient. In 2024, Whitstable Summer Recycling Agenda did divert some of the resources from Canterbury to the coast. For the coast, this was extremely successful. We had a summer where there were the fewest residents' complaints for 10 years about the state of the beaches, the amount of recycling left after a busy Friday and Saturday and Sunday. Of course, it continues to be and always will be problematic after those peak heat days. But last summer was a bit of a revelation for the coast, and the resource that we put in was by no means perfect. There was a high level of contamination in those recycling bins, and mostly with fast food and nappies that had just been placed in those recycling receptacles. So whilst it kept our beaches much tidier, it wasn't hugely efficient recycling. And so they're not universal wins for that trial. As you will have noted, we're putting £8,500 into additional seasonal resource for Canterbury this July to September. That was in the 2025-26 budget. So hopefully that goes some way to addressing some of the problems the diversion caused. We are not yet in a position where we can re-divert completely back, or the coast, Whitstable and Herne Bay, will again suffer the problems that blighted them under the previous administration. We did put into the budget, but sadly there wasn't yet the capacity to deliver the full coastal recycling programme. So we are having to look at alternative funding methods for that, which may include the UK SPF budget, which we're coming to look at, in order so that we can deliver the seasonal uplift in Canterbury and on the coast. We really, really want to prioritise clean streets and clean beaches, and I don't want to be in a position where we're pitting off seaside against city. We should be gaining universal district wins, and I hope that we as a cabinet can sensibly make that balance as we look to spend our money wisely for maximum cleanliness across the district. In 2024, we introduced our first handheld plant cutting equipment. This is cutters and strimmers to you. These battery-operated models are much more efficient than they were in the past. They will need replacing every 3 to 4 years because battery life is, of course, still finite. But as that non-petrol and non-diesel motor availability increases, so we too will look to increase the range of electric battery-operated equipment we employ throughout our equipment and fleet. Cannon&Co took over the contract for the public toilets in 2024. This was a big change for the company as well, transferring in 9 staff from the previous provider. Operational challenges, as I know you're all aware, remain vandalism. Some of our crews have been threatened in our public conveniences, and you're aware of some high-profile cases last year. And the condition and age of some of our sites, which no doubt we'll look to again as we come to new budget bids. But some of the vandalism and disrepair means that there may be a sort of invest to save in some of our older sites as we go forward over the next year, 2 or 3. Absence management has improved at Cannon&Co significantly, with staff absence in 2023 at 5.45%, now falling to 4.74%. I hope and I believe this represents an increased sense of happiness at work, They feel, after the industrial action at the very beginning of our time in office, I hope they feel they have a cabinet who are approachable, and a wider council, a Labour and Liberal Democrat-led council that are actively interested and engaged in work happiness and work relations. And we were very keen and happy to have had that direct sort of input and relationship building. And I feel our relationships were built with the unions and with the workers. And we are here, we are listening, and I think that's reflected in the decreased absence rate. They hold regularly, this is Caneco, staff consulting meetings, which is where they look for direct feedback from staff on how services can be improved, experience of being on the ground, and how that can better be reflected in our systems and staff structures. And there were 13 such meetings last year throughout the year. The Bartek system continues to be improved and refined. Routes have been cleansed and cleared and reviewed. As you all know, at the end of 2024, that caused some disruption in autumn. But since the implementation of those route changes, it has been much more efficient. And the regular cleansing of the data and the regular updating of property data, we know it's essential, but we've found out how regularly that needs to be done. You can't wait a decade and then do it and expect then it to be no disruption. Under this administration, a decade won't be waited again. We had plenty of growth bid submissions that made it into the 2025-26 budget. Plenty, but not all. And so, of course, there are areas where we would love to deliver some even more bins for the city centre. We would love to deliver proper coastal recycling that allowed different apertures so that commingling was far less of an option. All these things we're aware of. We will come back next year with new budget bids. And I know this administration, with more public funding and more resource, would love to deliver that too. What we have been able to deliver are increased funding for our public pitch markings, grass cutting. We have had to have over £100,000 invested in Caneco for property growth, because we have more properties on the register, more collections that need to be done. That's more money. Those are longer routes. Our digital systems have required investment. The seasonal uplift mainly focused at Canterbury. The uplift required for the maintenance of the Levelling Up fund improvements to the city have also been budgeted for to the extent of nearly 75,000, and the amount of money that we're putting in this financial year to the communal food initiative, which we hope will be rolling out successfully in 25-26. We, of course, will look to alternative pots, including some climate change funding pots for fuel upgrades, and, as I said, UK SPF for hopefully the coastal recycling project, looking at how we can prevent some commingling, although it won't be the amount we feel is necessary, 45,000-ish, to deliver a truly successful and attractive recycling project. We note the remarks of the companies committee, and thank you very much. They also mentioned the issue on seasonal uplift in Canterbury. They asked us to consider introducing reusable collection bags for community litter picks, and I believe this is a fantastic idea. I highly support us looking to that. They also discussed, and perhaps Councillor Dawkins will speak to it later, some of the biodiversity and sustainability agenda, how Caneco can greater highlight that and make sure it's part of their sort of remit as a company, and make sure that shows in the report. Because if we show ourselves to be really they show themselves to be truly believing that that's top of an agenda, we may be more likely to get further grant bids and opportunities in that regard. So that's what the companies committee. The KPIs continue to be refined. Sarah apologises she can't be here today for personal reasons. This wasn't possible, and I hope you will all understand. But those continue to be refined, and hopefully by the summer we will have those tangible targets, which I believe the Companies Committee also would like to review. It goes to scrutiny, but the Companies Committee have asked, and I believe we should look to ensure that's possible for maximum transparency, how they too can be involved in adjusting and monitoring the KPIs set by Caneco. So thank you, everyone. I will try my very best, as I know Marie will, to answer any questions you have, but any we can't, we hope you will accept that they'll have to go back to Sarah and others for a more detailed response.
Yeah, thank you, Charlotte. That was brilliant. Thank you for that huge update, thought-provoking, informative, responsive, and that's a great place to start our debate. I think you really deserve the privilege of proposing that, and I'm sure somebody will be fighting to second that, and then we'll start our debate. So take a breath, and whenever you're ready, Charlotte. Thank you. It's the that service delivery plan for waste collection. I bet you've got that, or not? Shall I do it?
I haven't got the actual words in
Okay.
front of me. I've just got my own notes on the plan.
I'll propose that, and then
Thank
you
you,
can second
Alan.
it. How about that? To resolve that the service delivery plan for waste collection and street cleansing, grounds maintenance and associated works, and public conveniences, cleaning and maintenance for 2025 is approved. And you'll second it. Thank you very much indeed, Charlotte. Okay, so now we can formally start any debate. I'd like, I think, to start while we're just having a think. Is there anything you want to add to that, Marie? And then we'll start from there, please. That's Marie Rose going to talk for a couple of minutes on the subject.
Thank you, Chair. And just to say that the comments tonight are coming from me as a director of Kinenco, not from me as an officer. Just in response to some of the points raised by the public speaker tonight, Guy Mayhew. It is on. A bit closer. Is that better? Thank you. Just in response to some of the comments made tonight from our public speaker, you will note on page 44 of the report there is an update on the contracts and specification, key performance indicators and procurement. What I would say is that from a company point of view and from a financial point of view, the accounts are audited independently every year, and that financial information is then reported to the company's advisory committee at the end of the financial year. I think it's recognised that from a procurement point of view, there is work to be done. There is a procurement action plan that's been drafted by Kinenco alongside the Council's legal and contracts team. The ISO accreditation that the company have, which has been renewed again this year, is around checking the company standards and the management system that the company has. So again, that's another check in terms of how the company is managed and delivers in terms of those management systems. And as Councillor Cornell says, that the key performance indicators are reported through to Cabinet, as well as the next scrutiny committee. There will be a focus on Kinenco from a recycling and environmental point of view. So there are checks and balances that are in place. I think the final part of the jigsaw is actually formalising the contract. So the company works to a specification, and as I say on page 44, it sets out that governance and reporting mechanisms. But the contracts manager is working with Kinenco at the minute on finalising that contract, and it's hoped to be completed by the end of June.
That's fine. Thanks for that. Yeah. So it's the only argument that would be maybe it's been a long time coming, but what's the point? Is actually having an embedded company and then getting the contract that actually works against us. So it's important that we have a good balance, we have a good think about it. And I know there's a huge amount of discussion going on to make sure that we have a strong contract that drives performance and doesn't hinder performance. So that I think is a really important thing as well. So any comments by anybody to add to that? Yeah, go ahead, Mike Stoll, Councillor Mike Stoll.
Yeah, just a very simple question, hopefully on the KPIs. As they're developed, do we or have we compared the current KPIs against what Serco was delivering to us in the past, and also against what our neighbours might be doing with their collection teams? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the performance and some of the key performance indicators, I think the Serco contract was a very, very different contract. I think one of the benefits of having a LATCO is that, yes, you've got key performance indicators, but actually you've also got the flexibility and agility within that arrangement to move resources, change resources, and respond to things as they come up throughout the year. I can certainly take that away and ask that question and feed that back to you after the meeting.
Connie, do you want to answer a question?
I'm not a great fan of LATCOs, and in fact, I think they're a figment and, well, a fig leaf rather. And I think we should look very closely at bringing Kanenko in-house. The idea of having a contract to deliver services that everybody expects the council to deliver, I think, is quite preposterous. I've said it before and I'll say it again, that if there was a employment dispute, the employment tribunal would spend the first day deciding whether a member of staff at Kanenko really worked for the council or not. And it's my opinion that at the end of that day, they would decide that in reality, they did work for the council because people expected the council, it's his illegal duty to empty the bins. They are run by people who, sort of relate to a cabinet councillor, and the directors are council officers. So I really fundamentally think that LATCOs are a complete waste of time and we should bring them in-house.
It's a point of view, but we're not in that place. So I just sort of, we are where we are, and we will make this work because we have to make it work, and it must be on the right side of delivering the best we possibly can. So did you have your hand up, Mel? It's Mel and then Michael, please, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you, Charlotte and Marie. Very comprehensive report. Just on I've got a couple of points about the biodiversity thing, but I'll just go back to the KPIs and the contract element we were talking about. If you go to page 45, it says the information. Any contract exceeding a value of 25,000, what we're going to do regarding the schedule. I was just wondering if that can be put in the contracts or the cabinet committee, the companies committee, that's what it's called now, isn't it? The companies committee. So yeah, anything that exceeds 25 will automatically go into any of those committee papers so that they can look at them as well, rather than having to, rather than that just being the rule that it just goes through. I think some councils, there's always a threshold. If there's a contract that goes over a certain amount, then it automatically goes to committee and is highlighted and a report made about it. So I was wondering if that could be a suggestion. So then that sort of ticks that box where you're always gonna have that transparency, and hopefully not those FOIs. What was the other thing? Oh yeah, and sort of echoing what Mike Soul says there about the KPIs. Just wondering if they would have VAG ratings as well, and yeah, looking to other similar companies to see what they're doing as well. And just picking up what Charlotte said about what I was going to talk about was, yeah, I think I was listening in on that company's meeting as well, actually. And yeah, there was some points made about the some of the biodiversity and the climate and the nature element of what Kanenko's doing. And David Maidment said, oh, well, we just sort of get on with it as part of the job. We don't really sort of make a point of it. So I feel like that could be, as Charlotte has said, you have got an environment plan that you're using in line with the government's environmental goal 6, apparently. But perhaps you could make more of a point of what you're actually achieving in terms of biodiversity. I know there has to be some training this week, I think, or it's going to be happening this week for some of the grounds maintenance team on cutting back wildflowers and all this sort of thing. I think that came through a grant. I know it's money, it is money, but I'm hoping that be great to get some feedback on that, whether that goes to the scrutiny committee or comes here or whatever, to find out how the staff like the training and if they've learned anything from it and how they're going to be using that in their work in the future. And it'd be great if we could have, and if it's good, it would be great to have more of that. I know that the environment team work closely now with Sarah. They meet monthly to talk about all of these issues because there have been a few hiccups along the way. So they're talking about how they can iron those out and work more environmentally across the board. So I think that's a start and we're making progress, but I do feel like there needs to still be more alignment with the environment team. Also the local nature recovery strategy that will be coming down the road very soon. There's going to be a lot in there about how we look after our, verges, parks, whatever, and how we want grasses to grow more, whatever. So I feel that we really could be bringing those together more. And I think that's it. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
It's a great example of that collaborative working that you touched on so powerfully in what you were doing, and how that, the collaborative working and the way you develop the relationship with the company. What is the company? It's very much part of our form as a council, isn't it? Doing what we want it to do as a council, working the way it's not perfect, but we can work towards that, meeting those goals that we want there. So, Michael, please.
Just a couple of comments, Alan. First of all, I think the plan we have in front of us is an excellent plan, very comprehensive, well written, and very accessible to, not full of management speak, which is refreshing. Second of all, we may have certain reservations about what Canenco are doing at the moment. It is so much better than Serco. Let's remember that, so much better. Thank you.
Anybody got any more points at all? Connie can come back, and then Chris, if that's okay.
So taking the lead from the leader, that it is what we've got. So just could consideration please be given to Canenco operating more like a local authority trading company by taking on contracts from other sources? This is very parochial in Barton Ward. I know that Redbridge are absolutely desperate for Canenco to take on the contracts for cutting the grass, for emptying the bins and other things. We have a lot of problems, and I don't want to, diss Redbridge Council, but it's a lot of the time it's out of sight, out of mind. And I just feel, they are our residents in our wards. They come to us as their ward councillors, and a lot of the time we're playing ping pong because we just bounce it back to Redbridge. That's a Redbridge problem. And Redbridge are absolutely desperate for some really, really good grounds maintenance and some really good sort of service delivery that I know Canenco does. So there's that. The second point that I want to make is that you mentioned about new builds and how rounds are getting bigger and bigger. And just on that point, people forget. They forget to sort of check when to put their bins out. Of course, we've had this big thing at the moment about the green bins. I am a bin influencer in my close. And people looked at me, and if I haven't got the green bin out, they sort of hesitate, as it were. I have pointed out to people that, yes, they've paid, because it's a paid service now, and there has to, and it was always in the contract. I've got a screenshot of it that I can send to anybody that says that the green bin collections will start on the 31st of March. But there was such uproar. It is basically, you have to tell people the same thing over and over again in numerous different ways. So we had the green bin debacle because people do forget about things. And also with new builds, you've got people moving in who are unused to the way that we recycle and we use the green bin, and we've also got a high student population and they have to be educated as well. So, if we could work on that communication side, And I know they do some very good work, but it's still very much an ongoing thing about, I quite like the idea of using sort of eye-catching slogans like "Don't be a tosser," to get people to stop dropping litter. But apparently, we're not going to do that. But we do need short slogans that people can understand. I just think we should really work hard on that communications. I like the stickers that's gone on the bins. That was good. Don't put your food, there's been lots of discussions about what does that mean and things like that. So yes, there are some things which are very good that Canenco do, and also things that I think we could improve on the comms. Please think about Redbridge.
Thanks, Connie. Maybe you need a sticker. Trust me, I'm a Bimfluencer sticker, so I'm going to get Chris and then Alex and then back to you, Charlotte. If you're almost summing up point, I'll probably be on then, I think, actually.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just trying to remember what I was going to say. I've completely forgotten. I do think that Mr. Mayhew has some points about KPIs. I have to say that when the old community committee used to take the Serco reports, to be honest, it was being baffled with science. There were 101 graphs, and to be honest, nothing represented really what my residents ended up feeling. They tell us every result was kind of 97.8%, and the kind of level of detail and honesty that we have today, which is, to be honest, the bin collection service is complicated. But it also relies on Bimfluencers in each street and how people engage with the service. And so to occasionally, to be able to have a report which says, sometimes it's not us, it's people putting them out at the wrong times, it's problems we have with utility companies, is the type of level that you don't get from having kind of entirely set KPIs. We've also spoken, interestingly today about flex in the contract, how we have found a different way of improving the marking on sports pitches, which is something that initially I had as a problem in Radfeld Road in Chesterfield, how we've tried different systems to solve the coastal bin collection problem. And this administration and the last try different things every single year to effectively, we might be at a point, touch wood, that it's at least better, not necessarily fixed, but we've been able to try different things each year. Rolling in the contract on the toilet blocks, being able to apply more around biodiversity, to have the recycling push that we had last year, to have the stickers around food collection. These are all innovations in a service which, to be honest, a contract would just go, no, that's not what you paid for. Even the increase in households, they probably would have kicked back on, so to speak. So we are, I think, getting more out of the contract. However, KPIs exist for two reasons. The first of which is to have a clearer transparency, allow you to measure yourself by the market, allow yourself to measure yourself with progress over time. And I do think that there is an issue here, which is without a clear and consistent framework, that measurement over time has been difficult. And because we are so honest, measuring us against other benchmarks and other contracts that Serco had, etc., is also quite difficult. So I would really like us to see those KPIs kind of set up. And I disagree with Mel's point about procurement. I think you've got to have a system which is flexible enough that things get, that we don't have to wait to the Cabinet Committee, which doesn't meet infrequently, to sign everything off. But I do think that a process for the procurement review should go back to the Cabinet Committee to be agreed, and they should be confident and willing to tear it to pieces if they're not confident that effectively it's doing its job properly. That might mean that there's a set cap. It might mean that there's operationally that information is shared with someone, but it should be somewhere. And I would like to see the KPI framework go to scrutiny and to the Cabinet Committee, and that we split our KPIs into a series of clear process-based KPIs, which perhaps we agree we don't shift or change for the next 5 to 10 years. We're still going to have bins. which we can tie to market sources to provide that information, and some which perhaps we appreciate will have some flex with the evolving, changing nature. But you should be able to look at our service and say, are we picking up as many bins as we did before? How do we compare with Swale? How does that compare with Dover? So I still think there's some work to do. I think it's the Cabinet Committee or Council, or Companies Committee's responsibility to do so. But I'd like to agree the service delivery plan with the two caveats that we ask them to bring a report on procurement, specifically on that, and that the KPI framework goes to both scrutiny and Cabinet Committee. I'm happy to agree this in overview. Keep me on the straight and narrow, Pip. Yes, in order to be able to deal with some of those concerns.
Okay, just before we come back to you, Alex, is there any problems in that Charlotte that you would be uncomfortable with? It seems reasonable, but on the other hand, we need to do that. So I'd just like to get it marked.
No, Chair, but if you come back to me at the end, I'll speak to a couple of the points made by other members of the Cabinet.
Excellent. That's exactly fine by me. That's great. Alex, over to you.
Thank you. And the advantage of speaking last is that most of the points I wanted to make have been made by everybody else, which is lucky because I want to keep this short because I need to put my recycling bins out tonight. So I need to get back before it's too late to do that. Just remembered. Yeah, I think that in general, I do agree with Chris's points about KPIs. I think I'm a seasoned committee warrior on KPI reports, not just on bins, on everything else coming back, and they are almost never right. But then, are they ever right in anything? And I think they deserve more scrutiny. But I think the best KPI, to Michael's point, is how much better it is than it was perfectly. It's a bit of a woolly measure, and it's not something that can be contained in a report, but it's certainly true. And I think, to that point, with the recent green bin kerfuffle, as it's become known in almost no circles, it was the responsiveness, the flexibility, the speed with which residents felt heard and were heard, and common sense prevailed. Perhaps that common sense would never have prevailed that quickly, or indeed at all, if we were stuck with a Serco or a Biffa or somebody else. And I think that there are elements there, which is how accountable it is and how it is. And I think there are definitely things that need to be looked at. I think they're detailed very clearly in that report, as Marie pointed out earlier on. Of course, we need to keep that scrutiny going. Of course, we need to go through those processes. I think there's been some good ideas. But in general, I think I and my residents are much happier with the service now than they were 3 or 4 years ago. And I think that's the main KPI most people care about. So I should be voting for this to go forward, but obviously with a few things that we've discussed tonight as well.
That's fine. I'm just going to take Mel, because you put your hand up, and I want Charlotte to summarise for us at the end. I think you have a couple of points as well, Marie. Okay, so you go first, Mel. Then Marie can summarise from officer's point of view, and then we'll hand it back over to you, Charlotte, to round it off with that, please.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I just wanted to bring up the contamination issue as well, because I think that's really, really important, and I know it's a big bugbear at KCC as well. And they are sitting on the environment and committee. Yeah, they're doing quite a lot of work up there to try and see the whole thing as a system, rather than just separating districts from KCC. The whole thing's got to work together, otherwise no one's getting anything out of anything, are they? So, but I know there's a bit of money there at KCC as well from their EPR, extended product responsibility money that's coming down the line, that they're going to be spending and working with districts to do that. But I do feel that's something that we need to push in our service delivery plan quite a bit more. It's how we decrease the food contamination issue, and also to pick up on Chris's comments to the comment I made about contracts. Yeah, I can see how it'd be better to go to Cabinet first, and then, we sort of look at it and have that ability to look at a contract that's over 25,000 before it goes to any other. Otherwise, we'd never get anything done, basically. But yeah, happy with that.
Thanks, Mel. Over to you, Marie. Please, comments.
Thank you, Chair. Just to come back on a couple of sort of reporting governance points. So in terms of the KPIs and where we report performance, the end of year performance will be coming to Cabinet. Scrutiny, they chose to change their role in terms of how they look at services performance, and it's more of a themed approach. So the next cycle of scrutiny is looking at housing services and contracts. So we've already got a steer in terms of what, from a Canenco service delivery point of view, is required in that reporting cycle. So there will be something going to the next scrutiny around Canenco and performance. You'll get the end of year performance figures being reported here. Obviously, we'll take on board that comparative data and look at how we present that. And finally, as Councillor Cornell referenced, the company's advisory committee, one of their asks was that the KPIs and performance goes through that committee. So we did promise to take that away and look at how we report that through that particular committee.
Yeah, that's fine. And I think we all agree there that we can make sure that happens. That final bit about the company committee having that look at that and maybe involved in the preparation of it as well, or whatever might be the case. Procurement process, I think we can agree there. But actually, I think what we were steering from there was to make sure that we understood, had a clear process from that. And I think that would be for the company's board to at least propose to work through and discuss and come up with that. So if you could just sort of clarify where that's going to go, I think then we'd be okay. Is that okay? Can you do that? Yep, that's fine. So it's that clear process, which I think is what was on your mind, Chris, wasn't it? I think you summarise it or summarise it. Probably not quite the wording. I'm struggling a little bit on that, but.
Yeah, I'm still not entirely sure we're there. I think the point on procurement, I think it should go to the companies committee, although my concern is that the companies committee doesn't meet very regularly, and the next time is in November, as an indication. Now, in terms of a procurement approach, if that is being kind of agreed, I think, to be honest, it would be sensible to be shared with a cabinet member and then scheduled for the November meeting, if that's possible. And then on the KPIs, can I just clarify, when you say end of year, do we mean end of council year or end of calendar year? So we're going to see an end of year report on service delivery next cabinet, he says? Yeah. June, okay. Which perhaps gives us enough time to feedback. I mean, they're going to base it on the KPI framework, which is here, so to speak, I'd assume. If we could clarify our points about sectoral benchmarking and about securing a number of the KPIs over a longer period of time. So we kind of establish kind of key service set KPIs which we don't shift, and then ones which effectively will operate. I'd be happy to agree the service development plan with the idea that, to be honest, we get a second chance to really have a bite of that cherry when we come back in June, so to speak, if people are happy. And if scrutiny isn't, its sort of overview isn't doing that job anymore, then I'm quite happy for us to do it. I just want us to be clear as to when that will be coming.
I think that's not a bad summary. That's probably, I think we're just not letting this drift, are we? And I think if the Cabinet Committee has to meet again between now and November, then so be it, quite frankly. That's something that I think, the company and with Charlotte will be guided by that as well. Charlotte, it's your turn to just summarise, and then we can take a vote on this.
Whilst we meet again to look at the end of year performance in June, the contract and the new KPIs aren't necessarily ready until the end of June, so there just might be a little time problem there. I'd like to think that we internally could add to our cabinet forward plan for a report to ourselves a key update on the procurement action plan. And then we can decide from that being added to the forward plan how that will sit in public and how the governance arrangements can work so that CAC, the companies committee, can get sight of the KPIs as well as them being subject to a deep dive by scrutiny and indeed overview. So I'd like to suggest it lands on our internal forward plan and we see a action report before June. No, yeah, internally. And then because Sarah won't have finalised the contract and the new KPIs by the time the Cabinet publicly looks at the previous year's data. So one, our priority is to absolutely make sure that we get our ISIL accreditation back, and that's a key aim for the company at the moment, to make sure we are viable and we are prudent and we are transparent. So it's in there in the report, and I just wanted to highlight that it's highlighted there as a key deliverable. Number two, Alex is absolutely right in that the KPIs exist so that the public know they're getting a good service. But the ability of it being Canonco and not a privately contracted service is absolutely that flex. The green bin wibbles over the last 10 days have been dealt with, I think, well, because we wouldn't have had the flex, as you rightly say, to offer, as we rightly should have done, the contracted extra week to our residents if we were tied into a very, very Bletchley Park level, data level KPI, death by data. There should be enough KPIs to be prudent and responsible and visible and transparent and know that we're delivering a great service, but not so many that you handcuff yourself to every single bin you've got in the district without flex for more or less or moving them. And I think that's really, really important to understand. It was no doubt human error that in the T's and C's for the green bins last year put the wrong number for a date. And that meant that week one collections didn't happen when they had been paid for and should have happened. The ability for us to send out an email and say, we made an error, we'll be back next week, I'm so sorry. It is, shows great humility on the part of the council, great understanding and great flex. Now, the 2-week gap is in the T's and C's. It has been since we started charging for the service. The 2-week gap exists for a few reasons. One, we're building new routes for next year. People are signing up, and it acts as a kind of break and a reminder for people to sign up. If there were no break, and that might be possible in the years to come, when people sign up in dribs and drabs over 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks after the service starts, it's a routing nightmare. And far more green bins are then missed. What we really want to do is start on the last day of March or the first week of April with a 95% full route. That makes everything so much smoother in those key gardening and cutting months of April, May and June. So whilst there have been minor frustrations, 2-week gap, what on earth, I thought I paid for a year. Well, it was in the T's and C's and it does exist for a reason. Also, the system, until a few months ago, couldn't handle an existing route and a route being built. It's actually been upgraded and updated and probably can handle that going forward. And we'll discuss internally as a cabinet whether we want to review for 26-27 changes in that regard. They won't happen next year because people have already signed up for new T's and C's that include a 2-week gap. So next year, there'll still be a 2-week gap because over 13,000 people have already signed up for the garden waste collection, agreeing to the T's and C's for that, for 25, 26. And that's really all I wanted to say. Thank you very much for some really interesting and thought-provoking comments. It is vital we remain transparent. It is vital we get our KPIs set and publicly and scrutinised and drilled down in and listen to our committees and make sure that when they're set by Sarah and the team and the contract is set from the end of June, it works. We're not afraid of scrutiny. But it is also really important that we've got an arm's length company working. We've chosen that so that we can flex, so that if there's a big event we want to run, we can get it collected. So people don't have to, our events might not have to go to private, waste contractors all the time, that we can offer a helping hand where it's needed, depending on the demand of the month or the season or the year. And that makes us a really quite attractive company to grow and take on other contracts going forward from perhaps other authorities, or perhaps Canonco will indeed prove so successful in the transparent and flex model that in a new unitary they'd at least be competitive for making sure jobs survive, for making sure they survive, and that they can offer a service on a wider level.
Good summary there. I think we're all clear about that. And what we need to do now, I think we need to vote, don't we? So we need to vote for this one. So you've heard the proposition, it's been seconded, and we're going to resolve this. So this is our decision. So I vote for is to resolve that.
That's carried unanimously, Chair, with 9 votes.
That's great. Thank you very much, Lauren, for that. Appreciate that. And that was really, really useful. I found that informative, straightforward, and confidence building, I think. I'll put that. Very happy with the outcome of that as well. Okay. Item 8 on our agenda now. You couldn't be more different, really, could this? I mean, it's just like the other direction, isn't it? This is a absolutely amazing opportunity that we picked up for a motion coming through council that started this whole thought process, I think, along. And it's about floor coverings, and I know this has been introduced by Councillor Pip Hazelton, who's our lead on housing. Do you want to start that, Pip? Yeah, okay, that's really good. And I know Marie's here to sort of pop in there with a few bits and pieces, and then if you could then propose it, and a volunteer will no doubt spring to mind for a second as well. So there we go. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Alan. Thanks, Chair. So actually, this is a report to note. So it doesn't actually, need to be resolved by us, but it's the next stage in the process from tonight will be to go to full council, because it actually came about, as you say, from a motion that was brought by Councillor Naomi Smith and seconded by Councillor Keji Moses back last year about floor coverings in our council housing stock, for which we thank them. And I have asked them to read, the report for tonight, which they have done with interest, and they've come back to me with their comments. And the first thing I want to say is massive thanks, particularly to Tracy Chambers and to Sophie McKenzie for the work that they've done, the research to prepare the report. And that, the thanks come from me and from Naomi and Keji back to the officers. So just to quickly remind you, it was really a recognition that when people move into their council houses, their permanent council houses, particularly from temporary accommodation, they have often few resources, and the few resources they have often don't stretch to putting flooring down. And we don't leave flooring routinely in our council properties for a number of reasons. Condition, people often think, oh dear, what a waste if we rip up the carpets, but the reality is that they are often threadbare, dangerous, in poor condition. They can be infested with fleas. I think that's slightly, a bit of a one or two anecdotes historical, but there are issues of liability, for example, if we started providing. So the officers done fantastic pieces of work. I'm sure you've all read it, so I won't kind of go through the report in detail, but basically it's cost prohibitive to fit carpets across all of our council. We know the issues with housing revenue accounts, and although we're in a better position with our HRA currently than we have been in the past, in the recent past, we're in no way in a position to do that. So the report looked particularly at costs, liabilities, responsibilities, concluded, HRA unable to sustain this provision. However, what officers have done is they've looked at the grant schemes, the Warm Home Essentials run by KCC, and we've also used some of our own allocation of the Household Support Fund. So we've been able to target support in the provision of carpet to those most in need, often people who are maybe coming out of refuges into their own accommodation or from temporary accommodation, for example. So just a couple of things, to highlight from this report. The Household Support Fund was opened and was anticipated to be open for a period of time. There was, I think we'd set £50,000 aside. It had to close early because it was massively oversubscribed, which I think in itself tells you about the level of need. And so we're still processing those because conditions of the grant mean they have to be spent by the end of March. So we had to close early in February to get everything through and the money spent. We hope that the Household Support Fund will be extended by central government, and if so, we'll look to assign funds and roll that out from April of this year. But it's not the only thing that council officers have been doing, because we're working with external organisations like churches and voluntary sector organisations who are also running these sorts of projects for like cross-referring and, and sharing in knowledge and, and looking to support where we can, which is one of our kind of sort of outreach objectives as an administration. Also, our Housing Solutions team are working with those, particularly in temporary accommodation, to like maximise their income so that when they do get into their permanent home. However, one of the things, if the Housing Support Fund is extended, what officers are suggesting, and I'm really keen that we do, is we look to see if we can do a bit of commissioning to find the impact, because there have been other studies that suggest that where you are able to provide floor coverings, you get better tenants. You get people who are more invested in their own home. They feel more engaged with us as their landlord. They're more likely to report issues, before they... So there are studies that suggest that. And I think if we could find a small sum of money to get an external look at the beneficiaries of the schemes that we've run so far, to do a little bit of number crunching and to get, some soft feedback, but also some hard data, that actually we might find that we get better tenant sustainment and better, engagement generally with our own tenants. Because the reality is, the Household Support Fund isn't necessarily going to be around forever. And if we've got some evidence of impact, then we can use that to look for or allocate funding elsewhere in the future. So just to summarise, thank you to the officers, thank you primarily to the councillors for having raised it in the first place. We've looked at it, we've kind of run a pilot based on grant funding. We know it's popular. We want to allocate funds in the future from grant funding if that becomes available, which, we're pretty optimistic, but we haven't got confirmed yet. We'd like to do a little bit of research about impact so that, what our gut feeling says can also be evidence, particularly about, tenancy engagement, this idea of kind of, people feeling more invested in their own home and as a, the relationship between tenant and landlord that improves. And I'm happy to, or I'm sure Marie is happy to answer any questions, but I think it's a fairly, it's a very well written report, and hopefully I've explained, the kind of the wider remit, and that you'll just be happy to note it and take it to full council when it's next scheduled. Thank you.
That's fantastic, Pip. Yeah, it's been a really interesting read and really good read. Did you want to add anything to it before we just come for the questions from the rest of the Cabinet? Yeah, okay with that. In that case, Mike, yeah.
First of all, a question. and the report talks about floor coverings, but then talks a lot more about carpet. And do we remove laminate flooring and vinyl flooring as well? And is there because there isn't, if we do, there doesn't seem to be a case made in this for not removing that. And I wondered if you could talk about that. And the other thing is that we're paying, well, we would be paying £26 a square metre. Just a quick Google at local carpet suppliers tells me that I can get carpet fitted with underlay at probably, you know, at the cheapest, but, you know, a sort of more like £16 a square metre. I wonder if we could look at our supplier on that, because if we can make the grant money go 50% further, then that would be the thing to do, wouldn't it? And also the report talks about the cost to us would be £2,500, whereas under the grant it's less than half of that, because people are only getting the living room and bedrooms done. So people must have very large hallways and stair carpets, I think, as well, to cope with the extra half on that. But I just think we might be able to somehow make the money go a bit further if we're a bit smarter about this. And if you can clarify, do we always remove the vinyl and the laminate? Because there may be a case for keeping that, because there shouldn't be too many fleas on that.
Thank you, Councillor Sol. I would say it's done on a case-by-case basis. If it's decent, if it looks well maintained, if there are no trip hazards, then you know, we look at it on a case-by-case basis. In terms of the cost and the supplier, it's one of the things that we've already been talking about. So I think we piggybacked on the KCC scheme for this time around. We know that there is going to be another round of household support fund. We expect it probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks in terms of the amount that we're going to get and guidance on the criteria. And I think that we need to look at local procurement, how we do that, work with our contracts and legal team to see if we can get a better deal.
Yeah, certainly be good to get a local contractor involved, and very much in line with our policies as a cabinet and a council, isn't it, and administration. So that would be very, very helpful indeed. Michael.
Just a quick question. Do we know what's done with other councils in the country with large housing stocks? What was best practice?
We can certainly reach out to colleagues and find out. I think with new developments, they tend to have hardware in floorings as part of some of the fit out. I think it depends scheme to scheme, but it's certainly something that we could look at. I think one of the issues with the HRA sort of funding this or being part funder of this moving forward is that there is a bit of equity to be gained as well. You know, we've got existing tenants who may need replacement floor coverings. So if you're just replacing new tenants' floor coverings, then there is a disparity there as well. But I think it's an excellent suggestion and one that we'll follow up.
Pip, yeah.
Yes, just out of interest, I believe in Wales, Michael, it's now I think social landlords have to provide floor coverings. That's not yet the law in this country, but you won't be surprised to hear that I'd be quite keen for it to, to be something. But there is always, a cost to that, and and at the moment we're certainly not in a position to be doing that. But I'm really pleased, at what we have been able to achieve in a limited way, and I hope that we'll be able to roll out more of it.
I think we'd all agree with that, wouldn't we? But Mike, come back on that, please. Yeah.
I can just come back on one other point as well. If we are able to get the living room and bedrooms done for about £1,000, can we offer that to would-be tenants and say, look, we know you're going to move into here. You may not be able to afford it, but if you can, we can do a special deal for you because of our bulk buy-in. And if you want to move into a home that has these rooms carpeted and you've got the funds, then we can sort something out for you. Because at least then when you move in on day one, you've got a carpet down.
Moves a little way towards the equity case that you, Marie, raised, doesn't it? A little way there. So I guess it's got to be worth a look, isn't it?
We would certainly have to look at the mechanics of that and how it would work. So it's something that we'll take away and see whether or not it's possible.
Sorry.
Yeah, thanks. It was just picking up on that. I just wanted to sort of make the point about the process. So, you know, how easy, making sure it's as straightforward as possible. So if there was a donation or something like that, they're not going to have to go through loads and loads of hoops to get, you know, just the simple getting the carpet down sort of thing. So we're looking at household support fund and possibly the cathedral helping, but there might be other people in the district that want to donate, but I wouldn't want that to make it to be a difficult process for them to do that, if you like. So I was just wondering what that process is about. You got somebody with some carpet or some floor, they want to donate, they want to give it to social housing. How do they get from that to that?
Okay, any answers? Marie?
From a liability point of view, in terms of those arrangements, that's not something that the council would want to enter into. I think that, you know, that lots of people use Facebook to advertise things for free, and people are able to make those arrangements themselves. I don't think from a liability point of view or a resource point of view that would be something that would be able to broker.
That's fine. Okay, any other points at all in this, or shall we just note that? I think it's absolutely excellent. We look forward to coming back to council on this, and we'll see get some feedback there as well. So that's amazing news. Okay, so we just can just note that happily between all of us. Yeah, that's good. Thank you for that. Now, okay, I don't think we need a break before the part B of the meeting this week. So. There are no reports in this part of the agenda. So item 9 is any other urgent business to be dealt with in public. I haven't got any been nominated. I think we're still the case, is it? None there? Okay, thanks, Lauren. Diary's open then, please, for the next meeting of Cabinet, which is going to be 7 p.m. on Wednesday, the 23rd of April. Okay, we don't need to exclude the press and public because we've got nothing in private there. So there's nothing to be done in private. So with that, I can close the meeting at 20:52. Thank you very much, everyone.